Welcome all, Raymond for Stream Gamers. Here we are once again with another tutorial about Microsoft Flight Sim 2024. Some of this stuff would be transferable to 2020 as well, but we'll talk 2024 because that's what we're in, is 2024. I'm in an A321. I'm going to go over a number of items that lots of people may or may not know. These items are where they are, how they work, and all of that kind of stuff. One of the very first things that I'm going to talk about is controls. Okay, so I have my sim set up in a way that number pad right here. So if I press the number pad number 1, that's the view I get. Number 2, that's the view I get. Number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. I don't use any of the other ones other than number 0, which is the FMC. Okay, you're saying to yourself, for those that have never done this, how do you do it? Well, it's funny you should ask that. Let's go show you how. In the settings, under controls, scroll down to where it says camera. Click on cockpit mode. Now you can do this same functionality for external camera as well, but I'm going to do it through the cockpit view. Okay. If I scroll down a little ways, mostly down to the bottom, you're going to see these. Yours is going to look a little different because I've tweaked mine and changed mine ever so slightly. But these are the functions that you're looking for. So to set the buttons to start with, this is what you use. If I press Control 0 and my camera is set up in a certain mode, for example, let's say my camera is set up to look at the primary and secondary screens, and that's where my camera is set. My view is set to. This says that if I press and hold the control key and press the number 1 key, now the number 1 key up here in the top row, not the number pads, the number keys up along the top row here. Okay. But if I press and hold the control key and press the number 0 key, then later on when I press the 0 key here, that's the view I'm going to get. So the view that I'm set at, when I decide to use any one of these functions and then go ahead and press that function, that's the view I'm going to get. So for example, my MFD or MCDU view, I have set to 0. And what I did is I got the view that I wanted. I'm looking down at my MCDU, got the view I wanted. I pressed and held the control key on the left side, and I pressed the number 0 key up in here on the keyboard and let go of it. Now I can, on the number pad, press 0, and that's the view I get. Okay, so that's how it works. I'm going to add one more part of the conversation in this, and that is, if we look here, for example, the number 2, the number pad number 2 key here is assigned to 3. There are 2 different conflicts. The first one is the one that I have, and then there's 2 more conflicts. How do you figure out what those conflicts are? Well, you go here, you click on this, and you see move back and slew translate backward. Those are the 2 functions that are also attached to the numpad 2. Okay? If you say to yourself, I don't want those like that, you can come here and you can just delete all of the assignments, but be aware it'll delete them all. And I don't want to delete the one assignment, which is important to me. So how do I address this? Well, I know the number 2, num2 is the one that's in question. I press search by input, press num2, and those are all of the functions that are assigned to num2. Now, don't be confused by shift 2, because that's not the one we're talking about. Or this S, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is there's 3 functions, 2 conflicts, and the one primary one that I want it to be primary, are conflicting with one another. This is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third one. Move back, don't want that one. I do want this one, and I don't want that one. How do I get rid of these 2 that I don't want? With my cursor not clicked on, but hovering over that, hit the backspace key. With my cursor hovering, not clicked on, hit the backspace key. I only have one now, If I go back and I go to camera and I go to cockpit view, scroll all the way down to where we were before, and you notice that's gone. There are no more conflict errors between these keys. Now, I will caution you that if you decide to do this, just be aware that you may be removing functions that you might want to use later on. In my case, those two functions, I've analyzed those two functions, and I don't care about those functions. I don't use them. If I do need them later on, I'll reset them. But that's how you can set certain views and attach to those certain views to your num keys. Okay? And it works just amazingly well. Before, I would sit here and go, okay, I'm trying to get down here, and then I would scroll in, and then I would move the camera around and just get it just right. Okay, now I'm there. But you see how long that took as opposed to that. And that's the view that I want. Not close, but that's the one I want. So before you say to yourself, man, I wish they would have done this in 2020, they have it. It's in 2020 as well. The functionality is very similar, a little different, but very similar. Look on your views, and you will see that there's a functionality to do this same setup. Okay, a fair bit of time spent on controls. The rest of the things that are going to go a little quicker. So the next thing is we're going to talk about metric versus standard. In the A321, you have your flight bag here. Okay, this is your flight bag. In here you have your options, and here you have the ability to switch between metric and standard. This just allows us to do things from metric to imperial. So for example, when we go to the takeoff menu and we decide that, let me get a flight plan loaded in here so we have something to work with. So then when we go to our payloads, now we're talking about pounds, right? Whereas before, if we had it set to metric, right there, and then we go to payload, now we're talking about kilograms. Okay, so that's just something that allows us to switch it into the units of measurement that we're more common, we're more adept to. Okay, once you have this set, you can hit set load, and this is going to load these parameters into the aircraft. Okay, likewise in here it's the same thing. If I hit sync, it's going to sync this out from my SimBrief thing that I put in. I'm going to hit calculate. I don't know what that is, but let's just put in 75,000. And it's going to calculate my flex V1, V2, my takeoff CG and throttle and all that kind of stuff. So, and then you can send this to the FMC just the same. Okay, so that's all been sent there. Now, the next thing that we want to talk about is lighting in the aircraft. So when I go here, they're hard to see, but if we were to darken the aircraft a little bit, and now we have our little flashlight, this is something that's really important. If you are like me, I like to fly during real-time live weather, so you're taking off from a place and it's 10 o'clock in the evening and you're taking off from Miami and you're flying to Salt Lake, well, it's dark. And so I don't want to change the time of day. I want to fly at night because that's what I'm doing. I want to fly it with as much realism as possible. In the Airbus line, you get this little flashlight that allows you to look around before you turn stuff on. Do not go up here and turn on the batteries and put your available power on, because your flashlight disappears, but all of those lights that are defaultly turned off are still off. So make sure you come down here and you turn your MFDs and your PFDs up and all those wonderful things. Set your brightnesses so that you have some illumination. Like these are all automatically turned up, it looks like, but down here you can see the floodlights are turned, that floodlight is turned down. So you just kind of go around the aircraft to make sure they're turned up. These dials is what we're actually primarily talking about, is these dials underneath this little lip. So underneath that little lip, there are lights. There's a light there. There's a bunch of lights that run along here. And there's a light there. These dials maintain those lights or adjust those lights. Okay? So if we turn this all the way up and this all the way up, When we bring battery power on, this is going to illuminate because of this dial, and the backlight in all of the dials and everything else can illuminate because of this dial. And then this is going to illuminate that side light. Likewise, that side light. Okay. So that's the lighting. Be assured that when you do this, that you have, the lighting set the way you want before you go ahead and turn the batteries on. Because I'm going to do it now. What you're going to see is, let me go up there. What you're going to see as soon as I turn the batteries on, which is right here, everything goes dark and my flashlight goes out. And if I hadn't turned these lights on, you would have no lights down there. They would look like that. And the other light, which is down here that I turned on, all of this would be dimly lit. Okay? But because I had these lights turned up, default, or I had turned them up before I turned the batteries on, I got full illumination. I got these side lights on. I can see stuff. And when I go ahead and turn on the ground power, that is, all of the other stuff is going to come on just the same. So when we go here and we go ground power and we turn that ground power on, which is external right here, we turn that on. Now we get all of these light ups as well, and they're bright enough because I turned this up. Okay, so that's a tip about lighting that so many people, myself included, they're not really aware that that's a thing that we need to do before we turn the rest of the power on. There is a crew light right here. So as you go through all of this, you'll kind of go down, after you get the aircraft started, you'll kind of go down this panel, you go down this panel, you go down this panel, and you look to see if there's any strange lights that are on that shouldn't be on. One of the deciding factors that it's on and it shouldn't be on is we shouldn't see any of these lights. This is the backlight, right? It should look like that. So the crew light, turn that on, okay? It should look like your pump light should look like that. That's normal. This means there's a problem. Attention is necessary here, okay? Same thing here. Your packs, they're in fault. Well, that's because the engines aren't running and there is no packs, right? So the next thing we want to talk about is the APU. So the APU provides bleed air for two functions: bleed air for heating and cooling, and bleed air for to turn their engines to get them started. This isn't a tutorial about how to start the aircraft, but this is more about a tutorial on how to get heating and air conditioning in the sim, as well to have air start, okay? And how do you do that? Well, turn the master switch on. You give it a minute, and then you turn the starter on. The starter will come on. Now we're going to look down here, and we're going to look at this information panel, which is this information panel right here. I have it selected on APU, and so we're looking at the condition of the APU, and we can actually see the condition of the APU and where it is and what's going on. Eventually, we're going to get a light here that says available, and here we're going to see power here, and we're going to see the generator actually generating power and the aircraft actually consuming power. Because as soon as the APU is on, we can actually disconnect shore power. Okay, so one of the items that I'm talking about in this video is this panel right here. This panel allows you to see the condition of the engines, allows you to see the condition of bleed, if there is bleed, which we don't have yet. And you can see there's a whole host of electrical, hydraulics, fuel. So for example, here we can see that we have 3,000 pounds of fuel in each wing tank. We have nothing in the center, and we have nothing in the aft tanks as well. We have a total of, not pounds, this is kilograms, because I switched that to kilograms. But we have a total of 6,000 kilograms of fuel, okay? Likewise, we can look at flight conditions, okay? And we can test flight conditions. Now, we can't test flight conditions now because the engines aren't started. We have no hydraulic pressure. So the way I understand it is we don't have full electrical and hydraulic set up. So none of these control surfaces will be working at this point. But once that's all set up and run, you're going to be able to check your aileron, you're going to be able to check your rudders, and you're going to be able to check your elevator and trim and all that. And you can do that here. So, often you get on the runway, hit the throttle, and take off, and you realize, hey, something ain't working. Well, before you do that, you can come here and validate all your primary flight control surfaces are functioning correctly. Okay, so and there's a whole host of more information in here that you can look at and go through. Most of which I don't fully understand all of it. Like I can see the air conditioning system here. Obviously I'm sitting in my air conditioned house. I don't necessarily need this, but to add that level of realism, you can check this stuff. Okay, so that is crew supply. So now we're going to talk about altimeters. Okay, now just because here we have switched this to metric, or in this case we have switched this to imperial, does not mean that the altimeter automatically switches there as well. You have to turn and click this dial. So you have to set it for inches of mercury and hectopascal. I think that's what it's called. Standard metric. Okay, Q and H. Okay. So what my point is that because you're changing it here does not mean it changes there. So be mindful of that. If you're a guy that wants to fly imperial, and the aircraft will more than likely defaultly be set to metric because the Airbus is manufactured by a company that deals in metric more often than not, I think. Anyways, enough said about that. So that's something that you wanna make sure that you adjust and you're aware of. Okay. Likewise, a cold and dark start, you should make sure you put on your flight directors. This is where your flight directors are. Okay. So that is that. I went through that. Off. Your window heat should be on. Okay, that's pretty important. We definitely need to have that off. As well, you're going to see in this information window here, once the aircraft starts down here, you're going to see something that says PREF WS off. Okay, what that's referring to, let me get some light back in the aircraft so we can see what that is referring to is I've forgotten what that refers to. You need to have this emergency light switch turned on as well. You're going to get a warning message about that. That is probably going to come to me. Look, I made a couple of notes here for myself because there was a lot that I wanted to go over, and I have forgotten this one thing where it was, but I have a picture of it that will indicate to me where it actually is. Yes, it's up. It's so that warning message that you're gonna get. Where is it? Here, you're gonna get that PREF. What was it called? W/F is off. That function, that key, or that thing that you need to do is right here. This little button right there, you need to push that up. That will eliminate that warning message. Okay? And again, this only is the case if you do a cold and dark start. If you do a Control E or you start the aircraft on the runway, you'll never be confronted with this. But if you do a cold and dark start like I do all the time, this is where that little button is, right there. Okay? I suspect it's in a similar place on all of the Airbuses. It may look a little different. The panel may look a little different because of the age of the aircraft and so forth, but that's where it is, okay? What is our next? I talked about this here being turned off. This needs to be turned on. And now we're going to talk about, finally, we're going to talk about TCAS, okay? So TCAS is without me getting too technical about it, because I can't, because I don't know the technical of it as much as I know that when the aircraft is running and you want radar to tell you where aircrafts are, we have to turn it on. And right now it's set to standby. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Control E and get the aircraft running, so I don't have to go through a startup process and do all of that good stuff, because this isn't about cold and dark start. This is about these things that I want to show you where they are. So on the primary PFD and the MFD, I don't know what the abbreviation for that acronym means, but it's actually in here. So if you're here and you're flying in the world, you're just buzzing along, you know, got your thing out there some 40 miles, and you're looking out there and you don't see any traffic on here, it is because TCAS is in standby. Okay? That is the reason behind it. How do you get TCAS out of standby? Well, you go down here, and you can do that on this panel or on this panel. They both function the same way. Here's your squawk code. So your squawk code has been set to 2000, but you have to click on ATC. You have to make sure this is set on auto. You have to make sure it's set that way, but you have to turn this on. And we're going to set a squawk code of, let's say, 1701. And if I go up here now, you note TCAS is gone. The only thing it's telling me right now is my park brake is engaged, which it is. Down here somewheres. Right there. And landing lights, which are on, which is kind of weird. Oh, because I did a Control E. Normally this would be here, off, okay? Because the landing lights should be off. We shouldn't have landing lights on right now. So we look at these things, and landing lights, I guess, I haven't, did I not just turn them off, or did I? Oh, I did not retract them. Maybe that's what they want, is retract. One. Yeah, there it is. They wanted them retracted. There. So the only thing the only warning messages we have here is that. So that leads us to the last part of it, and that is this panel. If you're running across things that are not, you hear a bing bong noise, you're not sure what's going on, this is the place to look for what the problems are or are not. Okay? Right there it says ground spoilers are armed. So if we look at the ground spoilers, they are indeed armed. If I push that down, ground spoilers are no longer armed. Okay? So that's the place that you look for if you hear a noise. And you go to yourself and you say to yourself, what in the world is that noise? I don't know. I think that does it. Those are the things that as a simmer in flying the A321, I find important to know where they are, how they work, what do they do, and that kind of stuff. Now, not all aircraft have the flight bag, right? Some of them don't. Specifically, the Boeing line don't seem to have this flight bag or are integrated with SimBrief. But that's another video that I did and explained that too. But anyways, this is Raymond. This has been Stream Gamers, and I appreciate you guys all. A like, comment, subscribe. I try not to put that plug in too often because I know you guys all hear it like I do 1,000 times a day. But it really does help the channel. It really does help me to grow the channel. It helps me to get this in front of other people and grow the community, and that's trying to what I'm kind of doing. And I'm hoping that you see the value in this to help grow it. Give me a comment. Tell me what you like about the video. Tell me what you don't like about the video. I'm happy to see both sides of that. I reply to all of the comments myself personally, so that if you get a message, it is coming from me and not somebody else or some AI system that's giving you that message. It's me, and it's my general genuine thoughts. Anyways, don't sweat the little things. The little things will look after themselves. The big things, do the things that you can do something about. The other ones that you can't do anything about, you can't do anything about them. Don't sweat them. You know, give it a good college try and then some. But if you can't do anything about it, it's not worth worrying about. Life is too short to worry about things you can't do nothing about. And most importantly, as always, be kind. Wave at somebody, smile at somebody. You have no idea what their day has turned out that's caused them to be maybe less than kind to you, but that is almost a surety, not their entire nature all the time. Most people at heart are kind human beings. Anyways, Raymond, Stream Gamers, appreciate you guys all. And till the next one, bye bye now.